And this is chapter 4, In the Throne Room of Yahawah. Now we're going to read through the chapter first, and then we're going to go into the verses, and we're going to study to see what Yahawah had witnessed when he went up in the spirit into the throne room of Yahawah. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking to me, who said, Come up here, and I will show you things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper, which is a reddish brown color, and a sardine stone, which is the tannish brown color. And there was a rainbow round about the throne in sight like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of Yahawah. And before the throne there was a sea of glass unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within. And they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Yahawah Elohim Shaddai, who was and is to come. And when those beasts gave glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Yahawah, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. Hallelujah. So let's start with Revelation chapter 4, verse 1 and 2. We're going to look at these 2 verses, and we're going to try to understand what these 2 verses are saying to us, because we know that especially these 2 particular verses, have created what we call the rapture doctrine. Okay? So the first verse, After I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking to me, who said, Come up here. Now that sentence, come up here, is what the rapture theory is based on. That, along with the teachings of Paul. All right? And I will show you things which must be hereafter. So I guess they forget the rest of the sentence. All right? And they also ignore verse 2. Immediately I was in the spirit. Now, I used to believe in a rapture because I was involved in the church. So I believed their doctrines until some moons ago. And this does not make any sense on any level. That the voice, like a trumpet, calls up Yahawah, who left in the spirit. And when you read on, where did he go? And behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. So he left in the spirit, and he was in heaven, in the throne room of Yahawah. All right. After receiving the vision of the glorified Mashiach and his judgments for the 7 assemblies, Yochanan was called up into the throne room of Yahawah Yahawah. He was called up. He was not there physically, he was there spiritually. The door was a portal which he was carried through in order to pass through the dome into the heavens. Now I'm going to read the rest of this because I don't want to be repeating myself, okay? The voice of a trumpet was that of Hamashiach, who was alerting him once again, but this time to call him up. Many have taught that when Hamashiach said, "Come up here," is symbolic of the rapture. Now, why is this wrong on every account is this? Yochanan was in the spirit when he went up into the heavens, and his body was still here on the earth. Therefore, how could this be the rapture or symbolic of it? Because according to my understanding of the rapture, bodies are going to disappear. Only their clothes are going to be left behind. But in this scenario with Yochanan, his body was still here on the earth, on the Isle of Patmos, in a prison. Now, how can you compare what he experienced to a rapture, where the entire body of the person is gone, according to them? How is it even symbolic of it? Does not make any sense. And we've had many people, even beyond what we're hearing today, for many generations we've been hearing that this sentence come up here, Revelation chapter 4 verse 1, means is symbolic of the rapture. How many people have we read in the Bible that were taken into the throne room in the spirit? Even in the Apocrypha. All right? So was that symbolic of the rapture? Because as far as I remember, Yochanan died in the prison. So how could he have been raptured, or even his experience was symbolic of the rapture when in fact he ended up dying in the prison? Is that what the rapture is? Your spirit goes up, but your body stays here and it dies? Doesn't make any sense, because that's not what they say the rapture is. The rapture is bodies going up, clothes staying behind. All right. Yochanan was brought up into the heavens to be shown the end times judgments of the earth and its inhabitants. That's what he was taken up to see. Matthew chapter 3 verse 16. And Yahawah, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw Harawak ol Alahayam descending like a dove and lighting upon him. So what I'm going to show you here, before we get back into come up here, rapture theory, there's a portal. Now it can be placed wherever the Most High wants to place this doorway. It's a doorway. Right? Because the only way for anyone, whether in physical form or spiritual form, To enter into the heavenlies, they have to pass through the dome. The dome is a ceiling over our heads. And when we get to Revelation chapter 6, you're going to see, actually, when we get to seal 6, you're going to see what I'm talking about. All those theories about universe and planets and aliens and spaceships and space travel, an expanding universe, galaxies, the Milky Way, all those things are all Hollywood productions, fairy tales, fables, lies, false doctrines, whatever you want to call them, they're all lies. Because when you have those lies, those false teachings, because we're taught in school these things as well. Earth being a spinning ball, spinning in space, everything is spinning around the sun, which is so many lies. Because it will explain aliens, space travel, spaceships, all those different things. They want to bring all this in because they want to debunk the Most High. Oh, he does not exist. It is the benevolent aliens that did all the good things on this earth, even created us. Those kind of lies. All right? But we know better. We know better. We know that it's all a lie. Nothing can get out of the dome. So all those rockets and spaceships, and not spaceships, sorry, shuttles and stuff that they've been sending up in the air, doesn't go anywhere, but it makes an arch and it ends up in the sea somewhere. Check out Bermuda Triangle. Why they don't want anyone to go into that area, because that's where the space junk ends up. So they build these fancy rockets and they end up in the sea. But then they tell you, man landed on the moon. How can they land on a disk? The moon is a disk. The sun is a disk. There's no surface to land on. They're just lights in the sky. Even the person who first landed on the moon said it was a hoax. Before he died, he had to confess, and he laughed about it because it was one of the biggest jokes played on mankind. Biggest joke and the biggest hoax. You see them bouncing around on this surface. That was a Hollywood production. That's all it was. Even the ones that they show you them in the spaceships floating around. Someone did a video of all the different mistakes that they've made when they did those productions. I remember one clearly, and I've said it before. These 4 astronauts inside this space. Well, no, I don't want to call it spaceship. In this shuttle, they're floating. And this plastic ball that they had of the earth fell from one of their hands and it fell to the ground. And see them trying to lunge to grab it before it actually fall. Or before it actually fell. But because they're on harnesses, farther, and they heavier than a plastic ball were floating. There are other incidents like that. But if you don't want to think outside the box, you will believe the lies. And this is the problem with a lot of people today. They do not want to think that the lies that they've believed for so long, the things that they've believed for so long are lies. That's what I meant to say. Because they've believed it for so long and for so many generations. Now, for you to come and tell me that we're not standing on a spinning ball? My mother believed that. My grandmother believed that. Now you want me to believe otherwise, even though the proof is there? No, thank you. Let me continue with what my mother and grandmother and great-grandmother even. I mean, it didn't harm them to keep believing the lie. Why? But why would it be harmful for this generation? Is because all the stuff that they're planning to destroy humanity, right, is going to come to fruition in this generation. They're going to try. Not going to say they're going to succeed. When it started with our great-great-grandparents, because obviously our forefathers that were in the wilderness and even the ones that left in 70 AD, they knew the truth. It's only after we became slaves that we were indoctrinated in a lot of lies. But it wasn't harmful per se to our forefathers and mothers, because the agenda was not for them. The agenda is for this generation. But what they had to do is they had to start it way back down the line, so that by the time it got to us, it reached us, we will believe wholeheartedly, along with all the other lies that they're going to bring about. And if you notice, there are a lot of lies out there now. It's not merely believing. You're on a spinning ball. All right? But no, they want you not to believe in the Most High. They're tackling this generation because they know that this is the generation that Allah Hayam is going to regather his people. So this is the generation that they need to destroy. Okay. Bara'ah Shayah, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 28, verse 10. And Yahawah went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows, and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set upon the earth, and the top of it reached to the heaven. And behold, the angels of Allah Hayam ascended and descended on it. And behold, Yahawah stood above it and said, I am Yahawah Allah Hayam of Abraham, your father, and Allah Hayam of Yitzchak. The land whereon you lie, to you will I give it, and to your seed. So this was Yahawah that experienced that doorway. Although he was not going up into the doorway, he saw the angels going up and down the ladder through this portal, this doorway in heaven, in the dome. Let's jump down to verse 16. And Yahawah awaked out of his sleep, and he said, surely Yahawah is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful, meaning how awesome is this place. This is none other but the house of Allah Hayam, and this is the gate of heaven, meaning doorway, meaning portal. It's an opening of heaven. Yochanan chapter 1 verse 51, and he said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter you shall see heaven open, and the angels of Allah Hayam ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Now this is Hamashiach speaking to the Pharisees and his disciples and the multitudes that were there. The Pharisees were challenging him. All right. You shall see heaven open. Okay. You're going to see an opening in the heavens. In actually the heavens, singular. Because there's 7 levels. But there's the one that we're seeing right now with our naked eyes. That's the first, this is called the first heaven. And it is separated from the second heaven by a dome. And the reason why we can't see any farther than the dome above us is because the Most High has made it that way for his own purpose. But we know when seal number 6 is open, that dome is going to roll back, and then we'll be able to see all the way up to the throne room. But for now, all that we see is in the natural. We only have eyes of flesh to see physical things. Some of us are gifted to see into the spiritual realm, certain things that he wants us to see. And then there are times that he gives us visions and dreams where we see things that our normal natural eyes cannot see and therefore cannot understand. And the reason why he allows us to see only in the natural is because our minds are natural. Our brains, we cannot comprehend the spiritual things until we come into a relationship with him where he can explain and teach us about these spiritual things. For example, if anyone saw a demon, you will die from the fear of looking upon this creature. But when you come into the knowledge of Allah Hayam and you believe in him and you are walking with him, he will show you what these things look like in the spiritual and even in the natural. Because there's some of them walking around with flesh on their bodies, possessing other people. But he will give you eyes to see, and your heart will not fear because of him, the Most High. And that's why he hides these things from us, because the fear of it all can cause us to die. We can die of fright if we don't understand what we're looking at. And that's the evil aspect of the spiritual realm. How about the glory? No man can look upon him and live. What happened to many of our prophets? When they saw angels, they fell down as dead. Because our flesh can't handle the glory. Just like we can't handle the fright of the demons, we can't handle the glory. So he's given us this place under the dome because we're physical beings until we come into the knowledge of him and he can reformat us and teach us. Then he reveals little by little the spiritual realm, because we have to understand that there is a spiritual realm. There is. All right, so let's move on. A door opening in heaven or a gate are all expressing the same idea of a portal opening in the dome where the heavens above the dome are revealed. And this portal is revealed to particular persons according to the will of Yahawah. This portal can be considered both spiritual and physical, as Yahawah, who is Enoch, and Aliyah, who is Elijah, both physically left in chariots through the portal into the heavens. We know that. They were taken away. Therefore, the portal that they went through was physical. But Yochanan and Yaakov experienced the spiritual portal as they were in the spirit when they saw it. Yochanan went through the spiritual portal as he was in the spirit, but Yaakov saw it in his dream, and it was spiritual as well. So whether you are in the spirit or you're physical being, when we take, for example, Hanawak or Aliyah, they were taken up physically in chariots. Now I'm surprised that the rapture hopefuls aren't calling that a rapture. Maybe because they were taken in chariots with horses and angels. But they were taken up through a portal into third heaven. So anyone, whether you are physical or spiritual, in order to pass this first level of the heavens, you have to go through a portal. Hamashiach called Yawachanan up into the heavens to show him the future. That's what the word hereafter means. He wanted to show him the future. He was showing the future for Yashrael, the 12 tribes, the inhabitants of the earth, and what would become of the earth. Now this is the awesomeness of Allah Hayam, who can show us the ending from the beginning, as he was showing Yawachanan. No idol can do this, not even Satan. Only Allah Hayam can show us the future. Yahawah chapter 46 verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am Allah Hayam, and there's none else. I am Allah Hayam, and there's none like me. Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. Imagine, he declared the ending of all that is going to happen, that we call the end times, all the way back, even with Dana Ya'al and all his other prophets, and now Yawachanan. How long ago was this? Thousands of years, several thousand years ago. I don't want to say thousands, but several thousand years ago. More than 2,000 years ago, he gave Yawachanan this vision, declaring the ending all the way back then, before the seals were even open. Only he can do this. My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. He will do what he needs to do. And whatever he says will come to pass. Immediately after the call of Hamashiach, Yawachanan was in the spirit. So you cannot determine yourself or decide within yourself, I want to be in the spirit and I want to go to heaven. No, you have got to be called up by him. And Yawachanan found himself in the throne room of Allah Hayam to behold him who sat on the throne, it was Yahawah. All right. All that Yawachanan was experiencing was a beautiful vision of Yahawah sitting on his throne, his angels and his elders with him in the throne room. So he was witnessing what the throne room looked like. Now, let me just say this, because I know that Yahawah said, no man can look upon me and live. And that is true. When Masha said to him, show me your glory, he said, no flesh can look upon me and live. He said, go stand on the rock there. He stood on the cliff. And he was covered by the hand of the Most High. When he passed by, he saw the back of Yahawah. But here, in the book of Revelation chapter 4, Yawachanan was taken up into the throne room. And he beheld Yahawah sitting on his throne with the 24 elders and with the beast and the sevenfold spirit of Allah Hayam. How come he was able to do this? Because Allah Hayam is more than able to reveal himself when or where it will not destroy the flesh that is looking upon it. We know Ezekiel experienced the same thing. He saw the throne room. Isaiah, Yahawah, saw the throne room. Abraham experienced it as well. And yes, sometimes they fainted or died even. I wouldn't dispute that. But he brought them back. He lifted them up upon their feet. He gave them strength to stand before him because his power has no ending to it. And however he wants to reveal himself, he will reveal himself to his people for his purpose. So yes, no flesh can look upon him and live. However, he can reveal himself with less intensity. All right? Yahawah was not seeing the fullness of Yahawah. He couldn't. He couldn't. Otherwise, he would not have lived to talk about it. If it was possible for anyone to stand before him and live, he would have allowed Masha to do it. But he had to protect Masha from his own glory. And yet, Masha spent 40 days and 40 nights with him twice. Total 80 days and 80 nights. But again, he was revealing only a small fraction of who he is to Masha. And he knows how to protect his people from his glory, to preserve them, to carry out his plans and his purpose. When we're able to shed this body of flesh, to put on our light garments again, we'll be able to stand before him in the fullness of his glory. Because we will be like him. Hallelujah. Verse 3 of the same chapter, chapter 4. And he that sat was to look upon like jasper, which is a reddish brown color, and a sardine stone, which is a tannish brown color. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second because you're wondering why there are two different colors. We're going to explain that in the next slide. Because the way how Yahawah is, from his waist up is one color, from his waist down is another color. So from his waist up would have been the reddish brown color, which is the color of jasper. From the waist down would be the color of a sardine stone. All right? And how we know this is based on what Ezekiel saw. That's the precept that we're going to look at. And there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. Yahawah gave us the description of Yahawah who was sitting on the throne. He looked reddish brown from his waist up, and waist down he looked like a tannish brown. Isn't that funny that he's our color? Right? He is our color. Reddish brown, tannish brown. What color is that? Does that sound like he's, Caucasian? He created Adam and Hawa in his image. And they were not Caucasian. He also had a rainbow above his throne, which was not multicolored like the rainbow on the earth. But this one was the color of emerald. So imagine an emerald around his throne. A rainbow, the color of emerald around his throne. What Yahawah saw was a brilliant green arch of light that resembled a rainbow because of its shape and its light quality, its translucent quality. All right. It would be difficult for anyone, even the most expressive person, to be able to describe Yahawah and the heavens with the angels in words that would do them justice. Yochanan described what he saw, comparing the sights with earthly items. And this was more than 2,000 years ago. If we could witness the throne room today, maybe we will have a better description based on the era that we're living in. But Yochanan described it with words or comparing what he saw in the throne room with what was around him. How would he describe a car? How would he describe an airplane? He would not be able to describe it with any other word except maybe compare it to a bird or a chariot without horses. That's how he would describe the car. But what I'm trying to say is that with the time that Yochanan was living in, the comparisons that he used were more simple, or were simpler than what we have today. Because what we have today, Yochanan did not have in his days. But the description, nevertheless, can still give us a good picture of what he witnessed. So therefore, the things that he compared it to was relative to the time in which he lived. He would have seen a rainbow. He knows what a throne looks like with wheels, chariots. So let's look at Ezekiel's account of the throne room, which is Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 26. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, and the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it. From the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about it. So from his waist up is one color, from his waist down is another color, but it's brilliant, like fire. Verse 28, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about it, round about the throne. So he also saw the rainbow. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahawah. So he showed them a likeness, because he cannot show his true glory, his full glory. All right? And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of the one that spoke. Anytime, even though they're witnessing a likeness of his glory, or a small portion of his glory, something happens to this flesh. It falls down. So let's look at verse 4. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders, sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. Lots of debates about who these 24 elders are, but it's one thing to note: they're not angels. Okay? In later chapters, we will come to know that these 24 elders are men, not angels. But who are they? It is not difficult to know who they are based on these precepts that I'm going to read to you. Revelation chapter 21, verse 10. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Yahawah, descending out of heaven from Elohim, having the glory of Elohim, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall of great height, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of Yashrael. Okay, so those are the 12 gates, the 12 tribes of Yashrael. Verse 14, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So there we see 12, the 12 sons of Yahawah, who are the 12 tribes of Yashrael, the names of the 12 tribes of Yashrael. Yashrael is Yahawah, by the way. And then the 12 apostles of the Lamb, who is Hamashiach. So let's look at Matthew 19, verse 28. And Yahawah said unto them, verily I say unto you, that you which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit upon the throne of his glory, you shall also sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Yashrael. Who's he speaking to? His disciples that he chose, excluding Judas, of course, Judas Iscariot. From these two precepts and more within the coming chapters of this book, the book of Revelation, we can know that the 12 elders are the 12 sons of Yahawah, or patriarchs and forefathers. And the other 12 elders are his 12 apostles. So together they make up the 24 elders in the throne room of Yahawah. Many have argued that it cannot be the apostles, as Yahawah was still alive when he was witnessing the elders. Remember that Yahawah was in the spirit, in a vision, seeing the future. He was not seeing present time. He was seeing the future. It is not an impossibility that Yahawah would have seen himself in the vision, but without saying it. He may not have recognized himself even. As we dream dreams and visions and see ourselves, and there are changes to our appearance. I've seen myself many times in visions and dreams. And I look like nothing like what I am right now. And how do I know that it is me? Because Ruach HaKodesh tells me. That's you. And just like what I'm going to say, the only way to know that we have just seen ourselves is by revelation of Ruach HaKodesh. He reveals it to us. Sometimes I know it's me. I know it's me. And then there are other times like, really, is that me? I've seen myself in the mirror even. And I look nothing like what I look like today. Okay? So Yochanan witnessed these 24 elders, and he was one of them, seeing himself in the future. Nothing is impossible for Allah Hayam. So why use that as an argument? You're limiting the hand and the power of the Most High. He wanted Yochanan to see the future. He was in the future. Why would he leave him out? Because he's not dead yet? It was the future that he was looking at. So obviously he would see himself in there. All right. These elders sat around the throne of Yahawah, received their rewards for their labors on the earth. That's why they were wearing their crowns. Let us reflect on these elders. Let's look at these elders. Why the 12 sons of Yashrael? There are forefathers who were the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Yashraal, whose names are the names of the 12 tribes. So the names of the 12 tribes are the names of the 12 patriarchs, the 12 sons of Yahawah or Yashraal. These tribes were prophesied and promised by Elohim to be to our forefather Abraham, but were fulfilled in his grandson Yashraal. All right. He's told Abraham, I will make your seed as the sand on the seashore, as the stars in heaven. But it was only fulfilled because Abraham only had one son from his wife. He had other sons from concubines, but he had one son from his wife. And his one son had two sons, but only one, Yahawah. The promise was passed on to. And from Yahawah, he had 12 sons. And through those 12 sons, we have the 12 tribes that are scattered all over the world today. Divided into 2 kingdoms for now, but they're scattered. Not lost, but scattered. It is for this reason that they, our progenitors, will be considered elders, not just an elder, but elders in the throne room of Yahawah. The 12 apostles of Hamashiach carried the gospel to the 4 corners of this earth, even long after their deaths, through their writings, and even now. Do you know the Bible is a hot seller? Oh yeah. Who wrote the gospels? Who wrote the letters, the epistles? Who did all of that? Well, we know the Old Testament was written by the prophets, and the New Testament was written by the apostles. All right? And it's because of the New Testament that brings about a revelation of the Old Testament that the apostles that wrote, and the apostle, I'm sure every single one of his apostles wrote letters. I am convinced of that. But we only have a few of those letters that made up the New Testament book. Why? Because a lot of our books were stolen, destroyed, and the few that remain, they changed. And they added some in. Like Paul's books were included, all 13 of them, and they all contradict the Old Testament. Yes, they do. Whether he really existed or not is irrelevant. But his writings, the writings that they call Paul's epistles, contradicts the commandments of Elohim. And that's why our people today are constantly bickering about the law, the commandments, the judgments, and the statutes, whether or not they need to keep them. Because Paul says, forget what Elohim says, but Paul says, we're no longer on the law, but on the grace. But if we study the original apostles that walked with Elohim, he is Elohim, with Hamashiach, then we will know the truth. And there will be no contradiction to what the prophets wrote. Some people say, well, you don't understand the teachings of Paul. The Most High doesn't understand his teachings. Because it's all contradiction. within itself and against Alahayam. All right? So the apostles, their letters that are still around today, they're still very relevant for us today. And it's still spreading the gospel to the four corners of this earth. So this is the reason why they are elders. All right? They were inspired men who carried the gospel, who carried on the ministry, of Hamashiach as he so commanded them. Their ministries were to preach to the 12 tribes, telling them about repentance, baptism, and of course, the kingdom of heaven. It is through these apostles that revivals took place and caused a widespread move of Ruach HaKodesh. It is for this reason why these 12 men will be sitting on their thrones, as Hamashiach had promised them. Hamashiach said they will be sitting on 12 thrones. So why can it not be the 12 apostles? On their heads were their crowns of gold, a position of kingship, leadership on the throne room, as promised by Hamashiach, that they will be judging the 12 tribes of Yashar'al. This is the reason why they are there with Yahawah to fulfill this prophecy. We are judged by them all this time, as the letters of judgments are being delivered by Ruach HaKodesh. It's them that are singing praises to the Most High. It's them that's casting their thrones before Alahayam and reminding him and thanking him for redeeming us. They're doing it on our behalf. They are clothed in white raiment, which speaks of righteousness. And they're doing a lot more up there, but we're going to see what else they're going to be doing up there. I believe that will be in later on, either later on in this chapter or in the next chapter. Revelation 19 verse 7. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife had made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen, which is the white raiment, is the righteousness of saints. So they were clothed in righteousness, and they wore their crowns of life. Verse 5 of Revelation chapter 4. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of Alahayam. And we've already looked at the 7 lamps, or the 7 spirits, and we know that they are the 7-fold spirit of Alahayam, who is Ruach HaKodesh. Remember, the book of Revelation is all about imagery. There's some parables in there and mysteries. All right? His prophetic language is there as well. And you have to be able to know what he's saying. There was another time when lightnings and thunderings were seen and heard with the presence of Yahawah. Our forefathers were in the wilderness as they were preparing to go up Mount Sinai to meet with him. So this is Exodus, Shamawath, chapter 20, verse 18. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. When Yahawah and Hamashiach comes into the presence of this earth, when they make their presence known on this earth, there is thunderings and lightnings and trumpets blowing. The earth shakes. The heavens shake. Isn't that what's going to happen when Hamashiach comes in the clouds? The heavens are going to shake. It's going to cause the stars to fall from the sky. And what is the natural reaction to wicked people? They run and hide, just like our forefathers. They said to Masha, no, we can't go out, otherwise we will die. And they sent Masha up instead. But they ran back into their tents. And all these people that are waiting for their Jesus to come, when they see when they see our Messiah, our Messiah in the clouds, they're going to be running and hiding. Even some of our brethren, a lot of our brethren, we're going to run and hide. Because he's coming with great power and glory. Wickedness can't withstand his power and his glory. Right? And that's why our forefathers, even though they were in the wilderness and they cleansed their bodies, they cleansed their clothes, they stayed away from their wives for 3 days, they still couldn't go up to the mountain because of the idolatry in their hearts. They were wicked. Same thing with us today. All these people calling, telling him, come, 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 but there's wickedness in their hearts. They're disobeying his laws and his commandments. They're worshiping other gods. And they think because they're Hebrew Israelites, that's all they need. Our forefathers knew who they were. There was no disputing about even the tribe, the clan that they came from. And yet they were all wiped off. They all were destroyed in the wilderness. Their children came and took the promise. They were led into the promised land. But those that came out of the Exodus, with the exception of 2, were destroyed in the wilderness. Not even Masha made it into the promised land because he disobeyed the Most High. All right? He saw it from the distance, but that was his punishment. Okay. The 7 lamps of fire, which are the 7 spirits of Yahawah, is his Ruach HaKodesh. What we ought to be reading is the 7-fold Ruach, Ol Alahayam, spirit of Alahayam, who is Ruach HaKodesh. This could not be speaking about angels, as Ruach HaKodesh will be missing from the throne room. So we know that he is there. The Lamb is going to be there pretty soon. We're going to see that. And we're going to see that the 4 beasts or the 4 creatures are there and the 24 elders. So where is Ruach HaKodesh? He is the 7-fold spirit of Alahayam, or the 7 flames that stand before him, the 7-fold flame. And we know he presented himself as a flame, a tongue of flames upon the heads of the disciples of Hamashiach in Acts chapter 2, verse 1. All right? So he's also like a flame of fire. He presents himself like a dove. You got to know the language and the imagery. Verse 6 now of the same chapter of Revelation chapter 4. And before the throne there was a sea of glass unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne room and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a man, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the 4th beast was like a flying eagle. So let's look at these marvelous creatures. They call them beasts, but that's not a nice word, is it? They're creatures. They're angelic beings. The best way for Yahawahanan to describe what was before the throne was to compare it to glass. So before the throne, there was this glass-like material. How else would you describe it? It's translucent. It looks like crystal. As I have written here, it has a translucent quality like crystal. Even Ezekiel, he saw the same material. He witnessed the throne room, but he saw the crystal as the likeness of the firmament above the heads of the living creatures that were there. So There's a likeness of crystal above and a likeness of crystal in front of the throne room. There is no way in which flesh can truly witness the fullness of the throne room of Yahawah. Hence the slight variations of Yochanan and Ezekiel's account. Doesn't mean it's wrong. But to give a full description of what they saw is just too much. His glory is inexplainable, hard to describe, therefore words will not do justice to give proper descriptions, as they both saw angelic beings unlike anything that they have ever seen. Yochanan saw 4 creatures that had eyes all over their bodies, front and back, which are not like the creatures that Ezekiel saw, which had 4 faces each. So let's look at Ezekiel. I know I have included most of this chapter, but it's important. All right, starting from verse 4. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud and a cloud enfolding itself. A great cloud and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. So this is the glory of Elohim when he moves. Okay? Verse 5. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. So their initial appearance is like that of a man. They had the physique of a man. All right. Everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. So each creature had four faces and 4 wings. Whereas the creatures that Yochanan saw had 6 wings. All right. And they had a look of either a lion, a calf, a man, or a flying eagle. But they had eyes all over. And there's a reason for this. Okay. Verse 6. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. So they had, even though they had the physique of a man, their feet, their legs, looked like a calf's foot. And they sparkle like the color of burnished brass. Who else had burnished brass? Hello, let's go back to Revelation chapter 1. When Yochanan saw his feet, they looked like what? Burnished brass. So what was the color of these angels? Same color of the Messiah. Negroes. Oh my goodness, sorry. Oh my. Verse 8. And they had the hands of a man under their wings, on their 4 sides, and their 4 had their faces and their wings. So each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. They had arms like a man. They had feet like a calf. All right, like the hoof. They call them hoofs. All right. Verse 9. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went. They went everyone straight forward. So these things were like zipping around like lightning. All right. As for the likeness of their faces, the 4 had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side. They had the face of an ox on the left side, and they 4 also had the face of an eagle. So is that similar to what Yochanan saw? Yes, it was. Yes, it is. Right? Eagle. Don't worry about ox. Ox is like a calf. All right? A calf is just a baby animal, a baby cow. All right? A lion and a man. Same features. Verse 11. Thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings of every one were joined to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward. Where Yahawah, where the Spirit was to go, they went, and they went not when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire. They were brilliant, and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, so the appearance of lamps also went with them. All right? Up and down among the creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flashing of lightning. Now, as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces. There's a reason why he called it his, because this is another kind of angelic being. It's called an Ophanim. He looks like a wheel within a wheel 4 times. Let's continue on. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl, which is a yellow jasper. And they 4 had one likeness. And their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. And when they went upon their 4 sides. So there are 4 wheels within each other. And they turned not when they went. So it's almost like a spinning that these wheels were doing. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful. They were awesome. And their rings were full of eyes round about them 4. So there were 4 wheels within each other. They were full of eyes, just like the eyes that Yochanan witnessed upon the actual angels that he saw, the creatures that he saw. Right? This must, Ezekiel was not looking at these little tiny creatures. He was looking at some massive creatures. Angels are not the same size as men. They can be when they come to deliver a message to us. But their actual form is massive. If you doubt me, read the scriptures. You'll see one angel had a foot on the earth, the other had his foot on the sea. Oh, I mean, like, really big. They're massive. No wonder people fall down and faint when they see them in the true format. And this is how the Most High made them. They're humongous. They're huge. They're dreadful. Verse 19, and when the living creatures went, the wheel